I largely felt he was betrayed by a lot of people that he trusts.
Personally, I think he's dangerous.
If that incident had occurred and Tom had during an election campaign and Tom had been the campaign manager, he would have been the first to say, cut him loose. That would have been...
That's disgusting.
I mean, it's absolutely horrifying. He is standing there saying he doesn't have a problem with a criminal activity.
Right to be in it if you want to. These are children, they're being raped.
We know that he said it, or else he could have got away with that.
Here now. So I came across a statement that you made. Your statement you made to the Manitoban during November 2009 in regards to the hurried legislation regarding child pornography. Tom Flanagan, you stated...
I never dreamed I would have a career in Canada, but I got an attractive job offer in 1968 to come to the University of Calgary. I'd never even heard of Calgary. Native people were just emerging into the political spotlight. So when I started my work on it in the 70s, you could approach it more or less as an academic study of interest without worrying too much about political repercussions. That has all changed.
I can tell you the people standing around me here, I guess I can see some kind of rifles. I've seen something that looks like semi-automatic weapons. I'm not...
I think I have a contrarian nature, and I took positions that were probably contrary to those of the Aboriginal leadership, and so I guess I became known for that.
Well, Dr. Flanagan really challenged many of my assumptions as a typical left-wing student, and I think that really says a lot about him as well as the type of classes that he taught, and that they were safe for that sort of discovery and challenging typical ideas.
I never had a positive view of Tom Flanagan. He wrote a book called First Nation Second Thoughts, and that really was, it's a racist book.
I didn't really get involved in the political sphere at all until Preston Manning invited me to go to work for him. I saw Preston as a kind of a prophetic figure.
To build a new democratic federal political party from the bottom up.
Deficit spending was out of control. The Mulroney government seemed to be set on appeasing the separatists. Here was this one man who was standing up saying, no, it's not true. Ultimately ended kind of with a rupture with Preston. He was making compromises that I think were now, I look at them and I say that, they weren't very, very big compromises. I was way too dogmatic for politics.
A new vision of Canada, the Reform Party today.
I would say I flamed out. So yeah, I took a breather from politics. I thought I was through with it. I became a pundit to some degree. I started writing columns. I didn't get drawn in again until 2001, when things started to break up in the Canadian Alliance, and Stephen Harper decided he would run for the leadership. And so after we won the leadership race for the Canadian Alliance, he asked me to go to Ottawa as his chief of staff. So circumstances led me to continue my association, but I actually didn't want to be doing that. So I finally got out of it in June of 2005. That's all I wanted to do, was to go back and be a professor again.
So then you wrote a book.
Harper's Team, yeah. And that's what led to breakdown in relationship with Stephen. He's a gifted man, a brilliant political leader, but he's also highly paranoid. He's very suspicious and secretive. It's ironic because he had helped me write a book about Preston.
By the time he went to Lethbridge, of course, he had a lot of enemies. I mean, a lot of people who wanted to see the end of Tom.
Idle No More. It's a grassroots native protest organized on the prairies. It started small. It's not that way now. Tom, when you look at Idle No More, who are you seeing?
There's definitely a political cast to this. One of the most prominent speakers on behalf of the movement is Pam Palmater, who opposed Sean Atleo for the position of Grand Chiefs. There are people who are not in charge but think they should be in charge who are leading this. And
does that take away from what we're witnessing, you know, whether it's on the streets or in the protests at the blockades?
Well, I think it makes a more realistic view of what's going on. They claim that Canada hasn't lived up to the treaties, where I would argue that Canada, in fact, has overfulfilled treaties. And then there's the usual leftist rent-a-crowd getting involved in here, which muddies the waters.
Idle No More does the research, and we saw parts of his past that made him even more of an unsavory character.
It's looking beyond the genocide that First Nations people faced across Canada, also the assimilation policies that are still currently in place, and the oppression that has become from this being one of the most racist places in Canada that you're sitting here now. So I came across a statement that you made that kind of relates you to the same approach that the residential schools have the church and the government. Your statement you made to the Manitoban during November 2009 in regards to the hurried legislation regarding child pornography. Tom Flanagan, you stated, quote, "But that's actually another interesting debate or seminar. What's wrong with child pornography in the sense that it's just pictures? But I'm not here to debate that today," unquote.
At that time, there was this big thing about the IKEA monkey going around in this picture of Tom Flanagan in this big jacket, which made him look like the IKEA monkey.
Is it really true you are the father of the IKEA monkey?
Yes. So it was a distraction technique. It distracted and almost brought those barriers down. And the response that Tom Flanagan gave regarding child pornography, that was really what caused the scandal.
So we asked this rambling question, much of which didn't make a lot of sense to me. And the one thing in there that I did recognize as a question that maybe I could attempt to answer was the thing about child pornography.
You know, a lot of people on my side of the spectrum, conservative side of the spectrum, I've been on kind of a jihad against pornography and child pornography in particular. And I certainly have no sympathy for child molesters. But I do have some grave doubts about putting people in jail because of their taste in pictures.
That's disgusting.
You know, I don't look at these pictures, but if a person looks, the closest I ever came to it was at one point in my career.
Cat got your tongue.
It's a long story, but I got put on the mailing list of the National Man-Boy Love Association, and I started getting their mailings for a couple of years, so that's about the closest I ever came to child pornography. So, it is a real issue of personal liberty, to what extent we put people in jail for doing something in which they do not harm another person. They don't.
Oh my goodness.
That's disgusting.
Do you guys support this?
And nobody said anything about it that evening. Nobody came up to me and said, "Hey, that's really incendiary," or you better fix that, or you better issue a correction. I just basically forgot about it. Well, I get up, get in my car, and start to drive back to Calgary. Just kind of passing the time, not thinking about much. And then the phone rings, and a couple of operatives from the Wild Rose Party had called, and they tell me there's this media firestorm. So then they said that we're gonna cut you loose.
While leader Danielle Smith would not comment, this statement was released. Dr. Flanagan does not speak for me
What was I going to do? I kept driving. So then when I got to look at my computer, there were hundreds of messages on it already, and the sky was falling in.
Speaking at the University of Lethbridge, Tom Flanagan was asked by a student about comments he made back in 2009 when he suggested looking at child pornography was acceptable. The reaction today was swift. The Prime Minister's office tweeted, quote, "Tom Flanagan's comments on child pornography are repugnant, ignorant, and appalling."
The Manning Center puts on this annual networking conference in Ottawa. Tom had participated in the past, and we had invited him for the 2013 conference. All I heard about it was that he'd made these statements that had become inflammatory and controversial, which that didn't bother us. What bothered us was that we started to get messages from other speakers and delegates to the conference saying we cannot identify with this at this particular time if that's in the air. So we had to balance that. I apologize to Tom afterward.
Today, the CBC also severed ties, saying, quote, "While we support and encourage free speech across the country and a diverse..."
I felt outraged because I had seen all these people that had claimed to be his friends, yet had dropped him. Anybody who knew Dr. Flanagan knew that he would really... I'm getting mad.
No, go ahead.
He enjoyed always being at the edge of controversy, and that's difficult to reconcile with work on a political party or political campaign.
I had sacrificed years of my life to help these people succeed, and I'd given everything I had in that cause, and then to be condemned by these people, it didn't. I guess it kind of soured me on the political profession, you might say.
Bull trout are carnivorous. They'll eat anything that they can get their mouth around. So when he sees a small fish acting strangely, he thinks, okay, here's something that's been wounded or sick and it's going to be easy to get. And so he chases it. Oh, there's a fish.
So a year later, you continue to teach at the University of Calgary. Your writing appears in the national media. You've just had your book published by Random House, the biggest publisher in the world. You're on cue. I mean, here you are. To what extent have you really been affected as a result of what you said last year?
Well, I went through a lot of inner turmoil. I survived, put it that way, and I'm back because I chose to fight back. I don't know if everybody would choose to fight back. Well, I was lucky in that I had a lot of friends, and including former students, that came to my support. If I hadn't had the friends and colleagues and former students to help me, I probably would have vanished from the scene altogether.
You